Today we're going to talk about compositions of transformations. And we've seen three transformations recently. We've seen translations, reflections, and rotations. And even further, we've performed these transformations on a coordinate plane. So what's really neat about the composition of transformations is that if I have a pre-image and I want to get to my image, I do so by performing a sequence of transformations. So before we get started, I want to review some notation for these three transformations. So remember, for a translation, we know we're going to do a translation with a capital T. And then if I say I have 3, -2 here, that means I'm going to go to the right 3 and down 2. Reflections, a little r tells us that we're going to do a reflection. And if I have the y-axis here, that means that the y-axis is my line of reflection. Last but not least, we have rotations. A capital R will tell me that I'm doing a rotation. And then we need two things for rotation. We need a center of rotation and a degree of rotation. So this little O here tells me that the origin is going to be my center of rotation, and this theta is going to be my degree of rotation. Now remember, when theta is positive, that means we're going to rotate counterclockwise, and when theta is negative, we're going to rotate clockwise. So the combination of two transformations is called a composition of transformations. So we have some notation for you here. So when we see this, we look and we see this funky little O thing, and this little O thing tells us that we're always going to read from right to left. So whenever you see a funky O, we're right to left. So what this means is that we're taking a reflection in the y-axis followed by a reflection in the x-axis. So reading right to left, we take a reflection in the y-axis. Then we take that image and we go ahead and we perform a reflection on the x-axis. So when you do the transformation, we always do it right to left. In this example, we're given a triangle ABC. We want to find the reflection over the x-axis after a reflection over the y-axis of the triangle ABC. All right, so I read that from left to right, but we're going to perform it from right to left. That was just another way that we can read it. So what we're really doing is we're taking the triangle ABC, we're reflecting it over the y-axis, then we're taking that image and we're reflecting that image over the x-axis. So what I want you to do for me is I want you to plot the triangle ABC. I want you to reflect it over the y-axis. Call that triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. Then I want you to take A prime, B prime, C prime and go ahead and reflect that over the x-axis to get A double prime, B double prime, C double prime. All right, I will meet you back here. I have total faith that you guys can do this. If you struggle, no worries. We're going to talk about it when you come back. Welcome back. So what we did first is we went ahead and we drew the triangle ABC, which is my triangle in black here, and then we reflected that over the y-axis. And when we do that, we get a triangle that looks just like this red one here. Now when we reflected over this y-axis, remember our coordinates, we have to negate x and keep y. So that means that A became -1, 2, B became -5, 5, and C then became -5, 2. Remember, when we flip over the y-axis, we negate x and we keep y. All right, and then what we were supposed to do next is we were supposed to, after we have this image that's reflected over the y-axis, which is this red guy right here, we have to then reflect that over the x-axis. So if we do that, we get this blue triangle down here. So we took A prime, B prime, C prime, and we flipped them over the x-axis to get our blue triangle. Now, when we flip over the x-axis, that means that we keep x and we negate y. So remember, our pre-image in this case was our red guy right here. This was our pre-image. And we went from these points and we got our A double prime, B double prime, and C double prime. So A was originally -1, 2. Now A double prime is -1, -2. B prime was -5, 5. Now we have -5, -5. C prime was -5, 2. Now we have -5, negative 2. So if we look back to the very original, right, if we look back to the points A, B, and C, what's the relationship with our final blue triangle in those points? So if we look here, A was the point 1, 2. A double prime is the point negative 1, negative 2. B was 5, 5. Now we have negative 5, negative 5. C was 5, 2. C double prime is negative 5, negative 2. Well, that looks like we just negated both the x and the y. So where have we seen this before? Well, we've seen this before when we performed another transformation. What transformation was that? Rotation. You're absolutely right. We've seen this before with a rotation. So if we have a rotation, all right, let's say that my center of rotation is the origin. So it's going to go through this guy right here. Then I know that I can find the angle of rotation by connecting a point on my pre-image and a point on my image. Well, when I do that, what's the angle that that line creates? Well, that line creates a 180-degree angle, which means that I've rotated 180 degrees. Now, Miss Wall, does it matter if it's a negative or positive 180? It does not, because it still gives you the same angle whether we go clockwise or counterclockwise. So what we get from this is that the composition of a line of reflection on the y-axis followed by a line of reflection on the x-axis is the same as a rotation around the origin of 180 degrees. All right, so now we have another example. We're going to go ahead and draw the triangle ABC again, and then we're going to do two things. The first thing, if we look at part A, is that we're going to take the triangle ABC. We're going to first reflect that over the y-axis. Then we're going to translate that 3, negative 2. So we're going to translate that by moving it to the right 3 and down 2. Right, so then for part B, we're going to do kind of the opposite, right? We're going to do the triangle ABC, and first we're going to take a translation of 3, negative 2, and then we're going to do a reflection over the y-axis. So what's going to happen is once we perform these, we're going to see, okay, does order matter? Does it matter if I take my reflection and then my translation? Is that different from taking my translation then my reflection? Well, let's find out. So what I want you guys to do for me is go ahead and do part A and B. I have total confidence in you guys that you can do this. So plot the triangle ABC, do a reflection, then a translation. Then later on, in part B, do the translation followed by a reflection. And go ahead and make sure you state those coordinates. And I'll meet you right back here. So I'm going to show you guys an easier way to do this if you want to skip that intermediate step. If you don't want to draw the image of ABC after a reflection of the y-axis and just skip right to drawing the image after a transformation of 3, negative 2. So what we're going to do here is if we look here, well, if we look at A, we want to first reflect A over the y-axis. So that's going to be okay. It's going to be right here. Then we want to form a translation of 3, negative 2. So we go over 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2. That means that A prime must be right here. Doing the same thing for C, we see that C is 5 away from the origin. So that means that we are 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away from that line of reflection as well. Then we have to go over 1, 2, 3, and down 2, 1, 2. So we get that B prime is right there. Doing that one more time. Oh, my apologies, guys. That's C prime. Make sure you're extra careful when talking about these and make sure you remember, okay, I started with C, I end up with C. All right, for B, we also go over 5, right, because B is 5 away from our line of reflection. Then we go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So B prime is right here. So if I connect these, this is going to be my A prime, B prime, C prime. Welcome back. You should have gotten the red triangle to be your triangle A prime, B prime, C prime, which was first the reflection of the y-axis, then the translation. And then your blue triangle, or my blue triangle, is the image after a translation followed by the reflection over the y-axis. So you can go ahead and see my coordinates there. Don't forget to always plot those coordinates and to state them. Now, is the composition of transformations commutative? Well, did I get the same coordinates? No, I did not, right? So I know that it's in fact not commutative. That means that order matters. So order matters, right? That means that if I go ahead and take a reflection then a translation, that's going to be completely different than from taking a translation then a reflection, because my triangle that is red and my triangle that is blue are not the same. All right, last but not least, I want to show you guys an example that's not on the coordinate plane. So in the accompanying diagram, M and S are lines of symmetry for our square, and P is the midpoint of the diagonal AC. So we're going to find a reflection over M after a reflection over S of B. So if we start with B here, we reflect B over S, gets right here. And then if we reflect B over M, well, B is on M, so of course it's going to stay the same. So it's going to be C. For this next one, if we start here at D, and we have to first reflect that over M, so now I'm at B. Then at B, I have to reflect over S, which brings me over here to C. And then I have to rotate around P negative 90 degrees. Well, negative 90 degrees is going to be clockwise 90 degrees. So if I rotate clockwise 90 degrees, I'm going to come right over here and I'm going to be at B. Last but not least, this one's kind of funky because we see that it's up a line segment. So when we do this, I just want you to look at the first part and follow that through, and then look at the second part and follow that through. So if we start with A is right up here, we have a reflection over M. Well, that's just going to stay put because it's on the line of reflection. Then we have a rotation around, this should be a P, that's a typo. I'm sorry, guys. So we have a rotation around P of 90 degrees. So 90 degrees is going to be clockwise. So that brings us over here to D. Then we have to reflect D over S, which should give you, oh no, what did I do wrong, guys? Let's try this again. All right, so much going on. Okay. Ready? Clean slate. Start at A. Reflect that over M, it stays at A. Rotate 90 degrees. I have to rotate counterclockwise 90 degrees. Miss Wahl, if the degrees are positive, we rotate counterclockwise. So now we're at B. Then we take B and we reflect it over S. We get over here, we get the point to be C. Doing the same thing, but for B, we take B, we reflect that over M. That brings us up here to D. We take D, we then have to rotate counterclockwise 90 degrees, which brings me over here to A. Then I have to reflect A over S. Well, that's just going to bring me back here to D. So my line segment AB becomes a line segment CD. All right, I hope you guys had a good time. I hope you really enjoy this as much as I do. And I will see you tomorrow where we will do lots of practice. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.